In this tutorial, what we're going to do is show you some of the different kinds of things that you can do with a workflow for working with red footage in Premiere and then taking it into After Effects to green screen. The reason that we're going to do this is because Premiere is easier as an editing tool and After Effects is a better compositing tool. So if we put the sequence together inside Premiere the way that we want it, then we can import that sequence into After Effects and only focus on compositing the portions of the footage that we're actually going to use. I've imported my red files into Premiere. Premiere handles them without any kind of fuss or different type of compression or export or things like that. So these are the native red files. And one of them is open in my window here. One of the important things to think about is how to consolidate your resources and how to conserve your resources. So here I have my playback resolution set to 1/16. And if I play just by hitting the spacebar here, you can see that as it plays, it's a very soft, pixelated kind of image. And this is fine for the purposes that we're working on because I don't need to see the fine detail to basically understand the composition or what's happening in the frame. So I can choose my in and out points as I usually would. We'll use the entrance of Nate as our in point, and then sort of the readjusting of the frame. As our out point. So we're working with 5K footage here, certainly more pixels than we need for a simple video sequence. So when I drag it down and drop it in, it's saying that the clip does not match the sequence's settings. Change the sequence to match the clip settings. And I'm going to keep the existing settings. And you can see that here we end up with a much tighter shot because of all of the extra pixels that we have to work with. If I double click on this clip and open it up over here in my viewer and I come to effect controls, you can see that if I go into my video effects, I can scale it down. And now still want to make sure that we've got the overall composition that we're looking for, but I have a lot more flexibility with my footage. If I wanted to zoom in a little bit, I certainly could. If I want to change the position a little bit, I can kind of slide it over. And sometimes this helps solve some issues with the edge of the green screen, and other times it's just simply a composition decision. So if that's my first clip and I want to bring in a second clip, we'll double click here, and this is the jump. We jump a couple times, so let's come back to right before the jump. And set the in point with I, scrub through, set the out point with O, and I'm going to bring this down. And again, double click on the clip, go in under the motion controls, change the scale. And we'll just use these two clips as an example. But if you know what you're going to work with for your sequence, you can create your sequence here. If I save this, so it's saved as a Premiere file, and I jump over to After Effects, and we go to File and Import. There's an option for Adobe Premiere Pro Project. And if we navigate to the red project, then you can see that there's an option here for all sequences. Red class is the only sequence that I have in my project, so it doesn't really make any difference this way, but you can see where if you had a number of sequences, this would be helpful because you can just import the ones that you know you need to work on in After Effects. So we'll just do all sequences, and I don't have audio, so we're just going to deselect that. It's going to bring all of the clips from your sequence, or from your project rather, into After Effects. This just takes a bit of time to make the connections happen. And if I double click on the sequence, you can see that we have our 2 clips here, and it's reading it like an After Effects project where each clip has its own individual segment here on the track. Okay, and so you'll see that the sequence looks exactly as it did in Premiere. We want to switch from our full resolution to a quarter resolution because, again, you don't need to see the precision of the pixels during playback. And you can see the 2 pieces that we have here. And this would be when you would want to do some color correction. This would be when you would want to do the keying out. The first color correction we're going to work with is the level. And just going to go ahead and drag it onto my clip here. And if we look at the histogram, we can see that there is a deficit on the dark end and certainly a bigger deficit on the bright end. So we're going to bring those 2 in a bit and up the level of contrast in my clip. If I jump over to the other clip, we'll do the same thing. And again, just using the histogram as a guide to spread out those pixels a little bit more. The next thing that we want to do is work with the key light. And with the key light, if we click and drop it on, you can see we've got it over here. And this is a really sharp program that comes with After Effects. And what we want to do is think about a couple of things as we go. So the first decision that we want to make is our screen color. We can use the eyedropper here as a way to make our selection. And what you want to do is choose kind of an average green. So maybe not the brightest green and maybe not the darkest green, but something in the middle. And you can see when you click, it starts to pull the color out. If I look down here, you can still see a bit of the shadow on the bottom. And so if I undo and I make a different selection, can still see a bit of it, but sometimes it takes a couple of times to sample in order to get the best kind of look for what it is that you're going for. If you take a look at the view, there are certainly a number of options that you can choose from, and one of the most useful is going to be this one called Screen Matte. And if I click on it, you can see that the image changes to a black and a white mask with the grays in the middle. And what we want to think about are the same kinds of things that we think about when we work with masks in other programs. Pure black is going to be completely transparent. Pure white is going to be completely opaque. And the shades of gray in the middle are going to be translucent. So anywhere that I see gray here, and keep in mind that you have different shades of gray depending on what part of the clip you're at, you're going to have noise in your composition. If I click on the little disclosure arrow next to Screen Matte, you'll see that there are 2 settings called Clip Black and Clip White. And this is very helpful for the way that we can clean up the mask. If I increase Clip Black, you can start to see where some of the noise that was previously up here is now gone. We still have some other issues here. But basically you want to kind of find the sweet spot between where you can get rid of some of the noise that's in the background with whether the darker shadows are falling on the clip, and where you can start to lose some of the image that you want to keep. If I clip white, we want to roll back, and essentially what we want to do is try to fill out the white shapes so there isn't any noise. Now here we have somebody wearing a green shirt, so this is going to cause some problems, but we'll just we'll ignore it a bit. We also have, you know, because we're working with such a large group, we also have a lot of dark shadows that you might not have in your individual clips. So we're just going to sort of move forward and work the best we can. We also have some different sorts of options here. We can play with the clip rollback, and if we push it one way or the other, you can see the difference that it's making in the mask, especially in those darker areas. We can shrink or grow the screen, so if we inflate it out or trim it in, you can see the difference that's being made. And this is where you want to make sure not to lose things like fingers or toes or the little details that start to be really important. You can also play with the screen's softness, and this is an edge quality. And again, you want to think about, as you're blending something into something else, you know, how this starts to work for you. If we go back to our final result and you look here, you can see that on the black background, we've got a pretty good key.